Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. I trust you had a good Christmas. I don't have any complaints about mine, although I have to say I found the adjustment from looking at the Queen's speech to looking at the King's speech really not only, well, natural actually, which I thought was really rather interesting. I mean, I have to say, I adored the Queen, but I have completely accepted the fact that the King has filled her shoes and is trying to do a good job. And having said that, I am now going to plunge right in. Today is going to be, hopefully, slightly less controversial than some days. Thank you for those of you who are submitting your choices for the best and worst awards. Please keep them coming in, because I'm going to, however it's done mathematically. So the more people who contribute and make their sentiments known will be the more people from whom we can choose, because these are your awards of the worst and the best of 2022, which is coming to an end pretty quickly. It's been quite an eventful year. Anyway, without further ado, let me plunge right in. Dusty Doodle says, I'm starting to think she may be mentally ill, and if that's the case, she needs to get help. Well, Dusty Doodle, in my opinion, there's no doubt that we are dealing with somebody who is not only mentally ill, but seriously emotionally disordered as well. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of professionals about this. We only need to take Dr. Carol Lieberman's diagnosis to know that she is saying what I and many other people have hinted at over the years, which is that we are dealing with somebody with not one, but 3 and possibly 4 serious personality disorders. I also have said here before that my advice from the professionals has been that Meghan displays symptoms of paranoia. But you know, just because someone is disordered doesn't mean that you're going to let them plunge the knife into you, either literally or figuratively. Then let them get away with it scot-free. I think if we shine a light on the condition from which we are suffering from the condition. Whether she's suffering or not is a moot point. I suppose to the extent that anybody who churns out that much viciousness, malice, and misery has got to be suffering on some level. But really, as I used to say about my mother, I will reserve my sympathy for her victims. That's the only way to cope with people like that. Jamie B says, Lady C, Meghan has claimed that she gave up her career to join the royal family. I've read several times that the royal family actually wanted her to continue her career in acting. Is this true, and can you speak on this? I can speak on this. I wouldn't have said that they wanted her to continue with her acting, but they certainly did tell her if she wanted to continue with it, she could. There's a slight difference there. What they did not want her to do was come over here and plug in and milk. Well, she came over here, she plugged in, she's been milking ever since. So, but the Queen certainly did give her permission to continue acting and or working. But we need to remember a very important point. Meghan was batting 40. If you haven't made it by the time you're 40, unless you're Mae West or you're playing character roles, and character roles don't involve, I was a love interest on Suits. You know, being an object of desire after you're 40 becomes less and less universal. It's all tied up with the biological imperative, with the body clock, with nature's dictate that sex appeal is for basically maybe our pleasure, and it's very pleasurable, but it is for procreation. That's its primary purpose. So I hope that answers the question. Christine Whitfield says, Lady C, is it true that the marriage is teetering on the brink? Can Charles not order them to separate as the Queen did with his own marriage? I have to say that's a very good question. And I've actually made some notes on a related matter. I have been receiving information from some very well-placed sources on both sides of the Atlantic. The American side tells me Harry and Meghan are never seen together except on the occasional official, in quotes, event. But nobody asks them out. They are pariahs socially. They aren't even D-listers. They are Z-listers. Nobody wants to be contaminated by them. When they are seen out and about, it is either one or the other, unless they know there are going to be cameras there. Now, they've had a reality TV show that was in the making. So, of course, they have had a certain amount of together time in front of the camera. But I am assured by people who are knowledgeable about this because they live there. They know the people involved. More than that, I'm not going to say because I'm not giving away my sources. Harry and Meghan are not ever together. That's one thing. Another thing is, I was told, I think it was earlier this week, might have been late last week. I mean, I'm so busy, the truth is that I have a very bad concept of time in terms of what I've done in the last few days. But I have been told by somebody who is in a position to know that the marriage is in dire, dire trouble. Harry evidently is not quite the dupe or dope that we might have been led to believe he is by his conduct publicly. Privately, he seems to be awakening. The scales seem to be falling off his eyes. Evidently, the marriage is in big trouble according to this source, is how I will put it, because I need to protect people's anonymity and identity. That doesn't mean they're going to get divorced day after tomorrow. It doesn't mean you're going to see an announcement. But the harbingers for their celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary are very remote. Let's put it that way. Can Charles order a divorce the way the Queen did with him? Theoretically, he could, but in practice, the Queen was dealing with a very obedient son and a maverick daughter-in-law who nevertheless loved and respected her mother-in-law, loved the idea that her son would one day be the king of the United Kingdom, and that her other son was the spare. So she was not going to kick over the traces the way that a big-foot gal with a chicken foot and a scrawny marga leg them, as the Jamaicans would say, has done. Because Meghan has no respect for the royal family or the institution or the country or the traditions. I said it in my book that when they were here, she, and he was parroting her, she was pouring scorn on tradition and rubbishing everything about the British way of life at every turn. And if that's an exaggeration, it's only a very slight one. I also got a little nugget about Meghan in India in 2017, and I'm reading it out because I made notes. You know Meghan, the great humanitarian, who's so wonderful, and I just, one act of compassion at a time, plunged the knife in. Well, in 2017, of course, because Meghan understood that posing as an Angelina Jolie monkey would actually enhance her saleability, to put it one way, or to put it another way, her marketability maritally. Because remember, she was asking people to introduce her to a rich and famous Englishman. Well, in 2017, a trip was organized to the, and I hope I've pronounced this correctly, the Mahila Foundation in Mumbai. They paid each of the participants who was going to be a member of a photo opportunity organized so that Meghan could pose as a humanitarian. And so wonderful, one act of compassion at a time. 10,000 rupees each woman was given. Well, 10,000 rupees is a lot of money to poverty-stricken people. I think it's a bit less than £100. Nevertheless, to some of these women, it was a windfall, and I am delighted that they got paid. But the point of all of this is that what you see ain't necessarily what you're getting, because the whole thing was orchestrated so that Meghan would be able to file away her wonderful acts of humanity. However, she didn't realize that she was actually going to antagonize people. And evidently, the woman who was dressing her in a sari couldn't believe Meghan's, nor could the women surrounding her, Meghan's prima donna, prissy. Oh, it scratches. Oh, I don't like it. It scratches. How long is this going to take? You know, why do I have to do that? Well, I suppose I will, but really, it just scratches. Can't you just hurry up and get this over with? I'm such a humanitarian, and I just love my staff. One kick at a time. I kick them with love. I don't kick them as if they're footballs. I kick them into heavenly rapport when I don't lash them into even greater heavenly rapport with the cutting edge of my sweet and wonderful little tongue. Well, some other people don't have any criticisms about that. I can tell you that is a fact. Isn't that so, H? Well, depends what use you're putting your tongue to, Megs. Interesting, no? Everything is popping out. Everything is popping out. Popping out being the operative word. Mystic 3653 says, here's a problem. My sister, who never considered or thought about the royal pair, has now watched their series and supports them. She 100%, and this is an American incidentally, I can tell by the spelling and the grammar. She 100% believes the royals treated the duo terribly and that King Charles III is terrible. When I tried to offer evidence of their lies and inconsistencies, she stated, quote unquote, that's just people's opinions. Here is the problem. People who know no history or the whole story will just believe and support them. I'm from a Commonwealth country, and their lies and propaganda can potentially create the risk of forcing a referendum. Well, if she's from a Commonwealth country, she's a Commonwealth country that uses American spelling and grammar. So I think we can narrow it down to the American continents or their environs. And yes, the young are gullible. The young don't look beneath the surface. And yes, Meghan and Harry are dangerous. And yes, I have said it, that my Jamaican contacts told me as a result of the disastrous visit that Prince William and Catherine made to Jamaica, and the way the whole thing was hijacked by Lisa Hanna and for her own political ends, And then everybody else fell into line. And also, I've said on this show repeatedly that several of the diplomats of colour have privately told me that they are extremely concerned with the effect that Meghan's claims have had, and to a lesser extent Harry's, but they mostly actually are complaining about Meghan, because their claims or her claims have affected the moderate centre in these countries. Now, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. The reality is, people in Britain seem to think that the issue is whether the British Crown remains head of state of the handful of countries that still have the British monarch as the head of state. But that's really not so much of an issue as the erosion of goodwill between the British Crown and the British Commonwealth, and the British Commonwealth and people in Britain generally. It's a much wider issue, and it's not really focused on who remains head of state, because whether the Jamaica, for instance, retains the king as head of state or becomes a republic, as long as it's in the Commonwealth and as long as it appreciates both positively and negatively the links it has and has had with Britain and the British Commonwealth, there's not much of a problem. The problem arises when politicians, populists, black power advocates, racists, and ignoramuses use and weaponize Meghan's claims. And now Harry's claims, because Harry is extremely complicit in all of this. And I can tell him, if they get divorced and he ends up back here, he's having a lot of fences to mend, even if he's only here for a 5-day visit. Tammy Smith says, Lady C, have you seen the video of Meghan having to curtsy in the show Suits? I did. I made the point that Meghan took ballet, and all ballet students do a reverence at the end of the class. Therefore, every student of ballet knows how to curtsy. I saw it, but I'm so glad it's going viral, because this is a visible proof that dear, sweet Megsy baby wouldn't recognize the truth if it slapped her on that reconstructed face of hers, and wasn't reconstructed because she had an accident or because she had a violent husband, so that it looks like the way it looked before. It's reconstructed to erase all of her African roots. Even the hair roots have been played with. Mrs. Colombo says, I hope you're not married to the Colombos. From, what was the name of the program again? He was wonderful. Anyway, good for the woman in Liverpool for telling her what she did. You can always count on a Scouser to confront the real issue. Well done. Mrs. Colombo, you're plainly British, And by the look of it, you're a Scouser. Well, actually, it wasn't in Liverpool. It was in Birkenhead, which is near to Liverpool, but isn't actually Liverpool. But that's a detail that Meghan didn't bother herself with, unless, of course, she rather hoped that by misinforming everybody as to the location, nobody would realise what she was speaking about, or indeed what went down that day. Meow. TLW4842 says, much of the footage the Harkles filmed of themselves complaining of their terrible lives was made during the height of COVID, when millions were dying and many were losing their jobs. And there they were, complaining about who made whom cry, instead of being grateful for their many blessings. I had to read that out, because those are my sentiments exactly. I mean, I still shudder to think and to actually absorb the fact that two of the most privileged people on earth cannot count a blessing, but nurse every grouse. And for a long time, I was perplexed, but now I'm not so perplexed anymore, because I know their motivation. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. EESADEE 9344 says, Dear Lady C, I just listened to another channel and this presenter was spilling all sorts of alleged dirt on Doria and Harry's wife. Given your unfortunate life experience with narcissists, I was wondering, why would someone with so many skeletons in their closet be so bold and irrational with their demands on the royal family? If what I heard was true, certainly the palace is aware of these alleged claims. Why is Meghan Markle seemingly unafraid of being exposed as the absolute viper that she is, as well as her evil black magic spell casting mother? Oh, be a woman. I'm sure she doesn't practice Obeah because they're not Jamaican. Anyway, thank you. Much love to you, your family, Mickey and Aurora. Thank you very much for the good wishes. This is an issue that I cannot go into too deeply, and certainly this is not the forum for going into it any more deeply than I already have. What I would say, however, is that Meghan has always suffered from overconfidence. Doria, Uriah Heep that she is, but with the snake aspect to her demeanour that has come across so clearly on Netflix. They're two brazen women who think they can brazen their way out of anything, strong jaw you to death. There are many people like that. There's a particular personality type, and I'm not even going to use the word of what they are, because it would be a step too far legally. But people like that, and you see an awful lot of them in certain establishments, especially establishments which have been created for their housing. Tougher than old boots, as the king said about Meghan, tungsten. They have brazened their way through everything and they think that's the way to go. Well, let's see what the outcome is going to be, because I am not a fortune teller, but I would think that something's got to give somewhere, sometime. Lena Johnson says, thank you, Lady C, for your courage and great wit. Oh, thank you. And Merry Christmas to you too. I will probably be edited out, but in my opinion is that they are mentally ill. Netflix is exploiting them for content. They don't care. The Harkles are not even aware that they are a total embarrassment to themselves. They are totally morally defunct. In my opinion, anybody in their right mind would realize that their lies would be found out. A total disgrace. Let us see if their lies receive wider coinage, or if their means of exchange are removed from circulation. Let us see. I think Harry and Meghan have been playing a very dangerous game, and neither of them seems to have ever been taught that if you play with fire, you might well get burnt. Let us see what happens. Andrea Bieber says, she's manipulative and they lie through their teeth, and I don't understand how people can buy it. But I'm seeing a lot of people from America on Facebook that feel bad for them. Love the Netflix show. And I think she's doing this in sentences, which, if I mean, for the sake of linkage, will actually link instead of doing it in rat-a-tats. But I'm seeing a lot of people from America on Facebook who feel bad for them, who love the Netflix show, and I think they're the victims. Ugh, and I can't believe the crap Harry says on this. Someday when she dumps him and he tries to go back home, he'll have nothing. Well, yes, an awful lot of people are being duped, especially younger people, because Meghan and Harry are using buzzwords. You know, I've seen it happen with other people. Michael Manley, the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, used buzzwords. There's a type of person that everything is a buzzword, but it hooks in people who don't think too deeply. Dear Holman says, hello, Lady C. Hope you are well. I have heard that Meghan and Harry have separated. What have you heard? Love to know. Thank you so much. Well, I've covered that one already. I don't think I'm going to cover it again. Except to say, no, they haven't separated. Not so far at any rate. What I will say is that they haven't separated officially, but evidently they lead, if the information is accurate, very independent lives. So, but that doesn't mean they've separated. Wise Old Owl says, people are not buying Harry and his wife's pity party. The readers pick comments on the latest New York Times Roxanne Gray puff piece are very interesting to read. The royal family does not need to comment. Thousands of everyday people are commenting on their behalf on Netflix, YouTube, trailers, IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes. Yes, more and more people, I am aware, have had their eyes opened to Harry and Meghan's appalling behaviour. And they ain't heard nothing yet. Kukla 8727 says, there is something quite disturbing about the fantastic lies she tells. It's like in her head, she lives in an epic movie starring Meghan, directed by Meghan and produced by Meghan. Me, me, me. Do I agree? I certainly do. Meghan's personality types, as I used to say about my mother, it's extraordinary that somebody can go through life and effectively their eyesight and care stops here when everybody else's begins here and moves outwards. Theirs stops here. It's all about them. Meghan is the director, the producer, the actress. She's not a big part player. No. Harry's the supporting act. But it is, in a funny sort of way, fantasy being lived out as a reality. And it is disturbing. But there's nothing we can do about it. So we can't get sucked in where our sympathies are turned against ourselves to give her and people like her a free pass. That's what they want. That's what they rely on. They rely on our empathy to trample all over us and suck us in and use us really like a massive shark, just keeping its mouth open and going through fish-filled seas, going shutting them out and swallowing. Well, I'm sorry, I'm no one's minnow, and I hope you aren't either. Story Night 1329 says, judging by Harry's besties, Eugenie and Jack, reactions at the Queen's funeral towards the Harkles, I would say that the Harkles knew that the Queen was dying. That's a very interesting observation that you have made. There's no doubt in my mind that Harry and Meghan knew that the Queen was dying. I do think that she died a little bit before they thought she would die. I don't think anybody knew she was actually going to die on the day she did. Well, once she took ill, yes, but certainly the day before. They didn't think this is her last 24 hours on Earth. But everybody knew her time was very finite. But one of the royals said that they were caught on the hop because they actually thought she would last a bit longer. But they all knew she was dying. Yes, they did. Harry and Meghan included. And if you are referring to the fact that there appeared to be an element of froideur between the Brooksbanks and the Martles or the Harkles, because I don't think we should bother to call them the Sussexes, because it really is Mr. Meghan Markle and Miss Harry Windsor along for the ride. They knew she was dying, in my opinion. And what I've been told, yeah, they knew. And nobody appreciates the way. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody appreciates the way they treated her then. And certainly nobody appreciates the way they have treated her in the Netflix show. Because remember, they didn't know she was going to be dead when it aired. Can you imagine the enormity of that betrayal? To totally denigrate the supposedly beloved grandmother's legacy the way they did. The Commonwealth. It's just a white man's trick to dupe innocent black people as the white man steals from the black man. Empire 2.0. Aren't we clever? Ali G says, she isn't even a good liar, LOL. When here in Australia, when the pregnancy was announced, her abdomen went from flat as a pancake to a bump overnight. Yes, many of us noticed. Trouble is, she thinks we are all deaf, dumb, and blind. Well, I think we need to give Archie credit for being a unique fetus, because Archie didn't only display diving skills that an Olympic diver would actually envy, and he did this before birth, but Archie also displayed Houdini skills. One day he burst forth, and therefore the baby looked as if she was 8 months pregnant when she was only 4. Then the next day, Archie, quite deliberately, maybe he takes after his mummy, maybe he's oppositional, because the next day he wrapped himself around her spine and hid, so the tummy was almost flat. I think we should be giving Archie more credit than he has so far received, because I think Archie is actually, if you stop to think of it, a genius at contortion and gymnastics and diving. Let's not forget diving. And of course, the other explanation is, in her supreme arrogance, Meghan has so flaunted her pregnancy and presented herself in such an extraordinary manner that all of us dumbos have come to the wrong conclusion. We should be acknowledging her greatness and that of the fetus Archie, instead of thinking, something is going on here that I've never seen the like of before. Well, you know, as the Jamaicans say, you spit in the sky, it will fall in your eye. And Patricia Rockwell says, Dear Lady C, I know Netflix lost a lot on the flopumentary. Why are they promoting another one by Meghan Markle and Harry? It's something about leaders. Meghan and Harry. Greta Thunberg is in it. You'd think Netflix would know better than to have their name attached to it. It's supposed to be released in December. I gather it's airing on the 31st of December. Well, anything that airs on the 31st of December is a belated Christmas dinner, traditional style British. In other words, a real dead turkey. That's right, a real dead turkey. Because most people are not looking at television on New Year's Eve. You need to understand that Netflix and all television production companies work way in advance. Nothing is turned around in 3 to 6 weeks. Except, of course, and this is not a television company, but Procter & Gamble turned around the Dove ad that Meghan objected to in a week, or was it a month? I think it was actually, according to her, a month. But that was unusual. That was because the 11-year-old Meghan was already so great that Procter & Gamble, without even knowing who she was, acknowledged her greatness, sensed it, and promptly spun around and removed the ad to which she objected and implemented her change. But putting that aside, Netflix will have had this in the pipeline for some time. And what we're speaking about is a turkey in more ways than one. It was filmed in 2019, as Jacinda Ardern has been at great pains to point out to us, as she puts as much distance between her participation and Harry and Meghan's involvement. This is the second vomit, so to speak. It's been done, it's been aired, it was of no consequence. They've given it a second life, and really, they're spitting it out a second time. It's vomit. It's televisual vomit. That's what it is. And they thought, Netflix thought, well, we'll try to make some money out of it. We'll repackage it. So it's really like a McDonald's from day before yesterday that's repackaged and sold as if it's fresh, in the hope that nobody's going to notice that it's stale. Well, Netflix naively, and it astonishes me how completely naive the American corporate world has been where Meghan and Harry were concerned. They obviously thought, because Harry's royal, they're buying class, and they're buying prestige, and now they've found out they're buying anything but, and that Harry and Meghan are a poison chalice from which they have to drink. And they are promoting these things for all they're worth. And as long as they make a return on their money, they ultimately don't care that this is regurgitated vomit, regurgitated McDonald's and that we are offended by something that is old being passed off as something that is new. They don't care. And that's one of the reasons why Netflix stock is going into freefall. They need to care a little bit more about the message they deliver to their viewing public, something they have not done so far. Catherine Wilmot says, please can someone explain to Harry and Meghan that South Africa had a truth and reconciliation program put in place by Mandela? Can Harry and Meghan do this before they spout off their mouths about Nelson Mandela, stealing Mandela's ideas off the Mandela family? I think Mandela's truth is more important than their truth. Yes, Catherine Wilmot. Harry and Meghan are thieves who have snuck in like foxes into the larder and made off with choice meat. And they're serving it up to us, having chewed it up and regurgitated it as if it is steak tartare? I don't think so. But again, just as how Netflix has made the mistake of pushing Harry and Meghan with this ridiculous Leaders documentary, sorry, and it was a bore to begin with. I mean, can you imagine Greta Thunberg as entertainment? I mean, sorry. Oh, I mean, really. She and charm have never met. And also, I think it's child abuse to have a young person of her age being paraded around the way she has been paraded. But that's something else again. I'd love to see what her situation is going to be in 10 years from now. Aurora, come here, honey. Come. It's okay. But yes, Harry and Meghan abuse the Mandela legacy because, you see, in their world, whether it's Netflix using them or them using the Mandelas, everybody's using everybody else. Nothing about content, nothing about the actual merit of any enterprise. It's all about lots of show and as much go as possible. We will end with Thomas Murphy, who says, Lady C, I am studying fine art at university in London, and all my peers adore the Guardian newspaper, and from this have taken on the view of Meghan being a victim of this cruel, racist and out-of-touch royal family. I myself read the Daily Mail as a guilty pleasure. I read it too. I also read the Times and the Telegraph and sometimes the Guardian. And enjoy the fact they regularly expose Meghan for the fraud she is. However, when I quote the Daily Mail to my university peers, we get into a big argument over which paper is giving a fairer portrayal of Meghan. In your learned opinion, thank you. How much of the British public's perception of Meghan and the royal family in general is being shaped and inflamed by left-leaning newspapers such as The Guardian? Should the monarchy be worried about their biased, woke coverage of the situation? Always love hearing your unvarnished opinions. Your fine artist fan. Thomas Murphy, good luck in your career. As you can see, I love pictures. I started life as a painter. That's right, I did. I studied art pretty much throughout for 9 years, I think it was. Yeah, no, 11. Sorry, so long ago. and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way to live your life. Because once an artist, you always have an interest and you always have love, irrespective of what the artistry is. I think good luck to you. Now, to answer your question, the British press have traditionally had a symbiotic relationship with the royal family. Each one needs the other to prosper, if not survive. You know, much of the media in this country are left-wing. I think about 60% of the media, the national newspapers, could qualify as left-wing. They don't want to necessarily destroy the royal family. They simply want to reshape the establishment with them being the media people and their readers, replacing what they regard as the old established order with themselves. The irony is they don't realize it's a battle they fought and won a long time ago. They still act as if they are busily fighting a war that doesn't exist. Another example would be Mick Lynch and the train drivers, because we have huge problems at the moment with the train drivers and Mick Lynch, who is the head of the rail union, and he's on several £100,000 a year. But of course, he's just a worker. And the train drivers are on a minimum of 80 and over £100,000 per annum. But they are disadvantaged. I'll tell you, I know many people who are on a heck of a lot less than 80 and £100,000 a year. And they are regarded by these woke newspapers and woke is not a good word to use actually, of these, what they would regard as left-leaning. I actually think there are many left-leaning people who aren't as stupid as them. And I certainly have sympathies to the left in some directions as well. So I'm very cautious about categorizing people. Let's put it this way. The readers of The Guardian and The Guardian newspaper staff, let's narrow it down to that. They love taking pot shots at the royal family. The Guardian in particular is actually not pro-royalist. It's pretty Republican. But other of their bias would not be anti-royalist and would not necessarily be pro-Republican. But they certainly want to keep the class warfare going, even though the battle has been fought and won. Should the royal family be concerned? As long as they stick to behaving as they ought to, and this becomes the question, what ought they to be doing? But in my opinion, as long as they behave as royals should and as good public servants should, they basically will survive. They won't survive if they jettison their friends and pander to their enemies, which I don't think you should even bother to argue with your schoolmates. Let them have their opinion if they want. And if you're going to argue with them, don't argue on the grounds of what the Mail says. Argue on the grounds of what the royals do. Argue, for instance, on the tremendous accomplishment the prince's trust that the king created with his severance salary from the Navy. Or use that. And the millions of people he and the late Duke of Edinburgh, his father, with the Duke of Edinburgh's award schemes, have assisted poor people. That's the sort of thing you need to use as a riposte. I wouldn't quote the Mail. I mean, I actually think the Mail can be very entertaining, but I don't think that one should be quoting it to Guardian readers. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. And remember, please keep the questions and comments coming in, because this really cannot be done without you. God bless. I hope you're enjoying the Christmas period. Take good care. Bye.